So if you're new to web development and you've heard of GitHub, you've probably realized by now that you need to learn GitHub and specifically how to use Git for version control. So in this video, what I'll be doing is teaching you the basics of github.com and helping you set up your first GitHub website. So to get started, you'll need to go to github.com. You'll need to pick a username, email, and of course a password, and then click the sign up button. Once you've done that, you should see a page similar to this one that says Learn Git in GitHub without any code, and you'll either need to read the guide or start a project. In this video, we'll start a project, and then we'll open up this project in the GitHub app. Go to desktop.github.com and download the app, and it's available on any operating system, so you should have no problem with that. Once you do it, be sure to sign in to the app by going to the Preferences tab. Let's click on Start a Project. And the first field we'll need to fill out is the repository name. So let's just call this one something simple. We won't be updating it very often, and we probably won't be using this for our GitHub site. We'll just call this test repo, short for repository. A simple test for learning GitHub. Let's leave this public for now and click on the initialize this repository with a readme. Then click create repository, and once you've done that, you'll be taken to the repository homepage. You'll see that you have several tabs here at the top that'll help you view different things about your repository. If you want to delete it, or when it's time to delete it, you'll do that under settings. The main button we want to concern ourselves with right now is the clone or download. And if you've downloaded the app at desktop.github.com, you're going to want to click this open in desktop, and what it's going to do is let you open up the repository in the app. You'll see the first thing that's filled out is the URL of your repository. You'll notice that it ends with .git. Whenever you're cloning a repository, you're cloning the code from the repository address and not necessarily the web page address. If I were to copy this and paste it into the app, this would fail. You need to have the .git extension at the end. The next thing you'll see is the local path, which is where all your code is going to be. You may have your development environment set up to however you like it. I keep all of my repositories under the documents area. If you'd like to change that, just click on the button and select the folder where you'd like to keep all of your code stored. Go ahead and click clone. And once you do that, you'll see that the app is now synced up with the repository, and any changes that you make will show up here in this window. Let's go ahead and make a change really quick. I'm going to open up the repository in my text editor, which is Adam. And we'll open up the test repo project we just created. And under readme, I'm going to change the title. And I'm going to add a little bit more to my description. A simple test for learning GitHub and the desktop app. About GitHub website and desktop app. Then I'm just going to save it. And when I switch back to the desktop app, you'll notice that to the right side, there are two red lines which represent the code that has changed. And then beneath that are two green lines which represent the code that has been added. So the code that is gone is in red, and the code that is added is in green. Over to your left, you'll see the changes and the files. If we had multiple file changes, you'd see multiple files here listed. Also, you can check the history of that file and changes that were made. What we need to be concerned with right now, though, is the commit message, and that's going to be done here in the lower left. The first field you'll need to fill out is required, and that's usually a short summary of the changes that were made. So I'm just going to type updated readme, and I'll just put changed the description. It's good to have very informative commit messages. Please don't get into the habit of doing this without a summary or a description. That's not going to be useful to anyone who's using your code, and it's more convenient if your commit messages actually describe the changes that you made. So I got a typo here. So once you click commit to master, what has happened is you've just staged this commit or these changes to be pushed out back to the repository. To push those changes, you'll need to click on the push origin, and you'll see a bunch of status message updates, and what it's doing is it's taking your changes and pushing them up to the repository. Now that I've refreshed my page, you'll see that my latest commit came in 33 seconds ago, and also the changes to the README are now showing. So typically when you're working with repositories, you have multiple branches, and what I mean by that is you have multiple versions of your code. The master branch is usually reserved for your final code, meaning that it's been tested and this is what should be pushed out into production. Typically, there is some type of development branch, and this is usually indicated by version numbers, or like I've just created the actual name development. I'm going to use that and hit return. And when I do that, you'll see that a new branch has been created and I'm now viewing that branch. I'm going to go back to my code and I'll add a second line. This change is only for development, and then I'll save that. And back in my app, I can switch branches. I may need to refresh this. Let me see. You can do that by reselecting the repository, and you'll see that I have now other branches. I'm going to switch to the development branch, and I'll say testing, or how about updated readme, testing a new description, and then I'm going to commit that. Then I'll push it up. And what I'll do first is go back to my master branch to show you that the description hasn't changed, but now there's a notification here that says a change was made to a different branch. If you click on the compare and pull request button, you'll see that you have your original readme here at the top, and just below you'll have the new changes. When you create a pull request, you'll see a message that says usually describing the changes and whether or not there's any kind of conflicts with the main branch. It's best to also leave a comment and you can close it and comment, or just comment. I'm going to click close and comment. And what that does is, actually, to make more sense, why don't I put I didn't like the description? And what that means is I've closed the merge, meaning I've denied the changes from development branch into master. Let's go back to the test repo and switch over to the development branch. And you'll see that denying the merge did not change anything. It just simply prevented it from going into master. Why don't I change that message? I don't know. I'll just put a simple message like that. And once again, I'll go and make my commit message. And I'll put something simple in the description. And commit that back to development. And push the changes. And what I'm going to do now is create a pull request for the development. I'll need to select that and compare. In the comment field, I'm just going to put merge readme and then click create pull request. And you'll see again we have our message, and this time we are going to click the merge pull request. I'll just put development is good and then confirm the merge. And since we've merged, it says that the branch can be safely deleted. I'm going to go ahead and keep mine. And you'll notice here, if we wanted to, we can revert back to where we were before we made that merge. I'm going to go ahead and leave that as is. Just comment. And now when I go back, you'll see that on my master branch, the repository has been updated. So GitHub Pages is very useful if you want a website for yourself or for one of your projects in GitHub. And in this video, we're going to set up a project site using our test repo. And we're going to just walk right through the tutorial. You can see here that we have the option to choose a theme or start from scratch. I'm going to go ahead and click start from scratch. And it says here we need to go to GitHub and create a new file. Name it index.html and then some HTML into the editor. And then we'll need to commit and push that up to the repository. Since I have my repository opened up here in my editor, I'm going to go ahead and create it here first. And we'll call it index.html. And I'm just going to type HTML:5 and then hit tab. All this does is set up an HTML document using the emit package. And of course, we'll do the simple hello world and then save it. Back on the GitHub desktop app, create homepage, and for use with GitHub Pages, I'll go ahead and commit that. I actually want to commit that to master. Probably should have selected that first. I guess what I'll do then is go back to GitHub and merge that. You can find your repositories here in this repository area. And I'm just going to create the pull request, merge them, confirm it, and this time I'll go ahead and close that development branch. I'm going to be pushing everything up to master since this is just a test repository anyway. So we have the index.html file created. It says here our next step is to click on the settings tab, scroll down to GitHub pages section, and then select the master branch source and then save. So here on settings, scroll down to GitHub pages, select the master branch, and then save. And if you may have noticed that we also have the option to choose a theme down here using Jekyll, which is a static site. After we've saved it, it says we're done. So the address is your username. Mine is EasyDevToots. .github.io/the repository. Why don't we update our readme file to include a link? So I'm going to copy that format, go back to my repository page, and then paste it. I'll replace this with my username. And then at the end, we'll put the test-repo. And since we're using Markdown, I believe that's how it's done. I'll just type demo and then save it. Add link to demo on readme for easy access. I'm going to go ahead and commit that to master this time by switching the branch, committing, and then pushing. Oops. So when you see this error, it means that your local repository is now out of sync with your actual repository stored on GitHub. So what you need to do is actually, what I'll do is I'll undo that, and I'm just going to click the fetch origin first, then pull, and what that has done is synced my repository with the github.com server. So now I'm going to commit and then push that back up, and now our changes should be pushed up to the master branch. Let's go back to the home page, and you'll see here that we now have our demo link, and when I just open that in a new tab, you'll see our hello world message, and it's live on our GitHub repo website. So at this point, you've learned how to get a website up on GitHub, and you have a few options. GitHub uses something called Jekyll, which is a static website, no database required for blogging and hosting your own type of pretty much website, any kind of website you want. If you decide to take that into production, you can always create a file cname. If you know what that is, it has to deal with the URL. So if you wanted a custom URL for testrepo.com or what have you, you would change that here. And of course, there are many guides with more advanced topics to help you get your GitHub site started. So that's going to be it. I hope you enjoyed this really a high-level intro to github.com. And now that you've watched that, you're ready to start coding and pushing all your changes up to GitHub.